On today's episode of the Real Recovery Podcast, episode number 54, we are thrilled to welcome Steve and Terri Harris, our first couple guests on the show. Steve and Terri share their remarkable journey, highlighting how their individual paths in recovery intertwined to build a partnership lasting over 25 years. Listen as they openly discuss the struggles and triumphs they faced, from navigating blended family challenges and parenting children through addiction, to the strength they found in community and mutual support. Join us for this heartfelt conversation filled with lessons on patience, honesty, and living recovery as a lifestyle.
Hello, and welcome to the Real Recovery Podcast. I'm Julie, your co-host. On this journey of healing and transformation, together with my co-host Peter, we dive into the heart of recovery, sharing stories that resonate with courage and inspiration.
That's right, Julie. Each episode is a new chapter in this vast narrative of recovery, and we're honored to bring them to you. But keep in mind, the perspectives you'll hear are for informational purposes only and may not reflect the views of the podcast or our partners.
Indeed, while these conversations can be a powerful part of your recovery toolkit, they are not substitute for professional medical advice. We encourage you to seek guidance from your healthcare provider for any treatment-related decisions.
And if you're facing an immediate crisis, or if you just need to talk to someone who understands, don't hesitate to call the Recovery Crisis Line at 503-223-8569. That number is also on our website. Help is available 24/7.
Now let's begin our episode
of recovery, real recovery.
I want to say welcome. We have Steve and Terri here tonight, and I met Steve at the Walk for Recovery. He had the booth right next to us and asked him then. He asked about the podcast. I asked about you. Then we saw you again at Gratitude Night, 4D. And then I think we've seen you one other place. We keep bumping into each other.
Yeah.
And you are our first couple on the podcast. I'm so excited for you to share your story, especially when you said how long you've been together. That's how many years I've been sober. So you got together in 1987?
88.
Oh, like I was in the close. Yeah. That's cool. Which one of you wants to go first and then feed off of each other? And I'm excited because usually I know a lot of the people that come on our show, and I don't know either one of your stories, so I'm excited.
Yeah. Hopefully you found this place okay and it wasn't too hard of a journey to get here.
We made it. We made it. Studio H.
Peter's house.
We got there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and start and I'll fill in.
So let me just say that what really got us together was the fact that we, and I'll just share a little bit of mine, had a long history of drinking and using beforehand, and went through some rough times, several marriages and divorces with kids on my end, and a family history of substance use. My grandfather died at 52. My dad died at 58. And they were both successful businessmen. And this affects everyone.
My dad died at 42.
Yeah. And the writing was on the wall, and I went through all kinds of things in stopping. My first wife threw me out when our daughter was about 11 months old. And then I got married again, and she was pregnant, and the bottom was falling out. And I went to an outpatient, and I thought, what they're saying is great. I never ate before I drank, so I had a cheeseburger and fries and thought that would help. And
absorb the alcohol.
The short story of that is 4 days later, I ended up in a residential treatment center.
Wow.
And 20 months later, I left that treatment center, and I really didn't do anything for my recovery. I went to a meeting once or twice a month, didn't work the steps, didn't get a sponsor, and I was about 20 months sober. And this was my second wife. Now our son was born, and she said, "Steve, you're still an asshole. You just don't smell like alcohol, and get out."
Oh, yeah.
And I hadn't changed because I hadn't done anything about my recovery, and I didn't have any tools, so I drank. That's the tools that I had.
Yeah.
And eventually I walked into a meeting and said, "I drank last night. I don't know what to do. And this gal named Mary Beth said, show up at the 5:30 meeting, which was the New Alternatives. It was downtown. And these guys talked to me, and we worked the first 3 steps in a Chinese food restaurant down there at about 12th and Jefferson, where the Safeway used to be, and now it's moved across the street.
I went to Portland State. No, well,
yeah. And things really began to change. I had a slip 6 years later, and very short. And so I've been sober since.
We call that research. When you
It wasn't even research. It was barely a sip.
No. Well, I think once you have a belly full of AA,
Yeah,
it's not half as fun.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of stuff, and I think sometimes we think, hey, if I drink, I'll just take the cap off and that's it. Alcohol is a subtle foe, and it can really creep on us and think, oh, maybe I do have this handled. And then
cunning and baffling.
if we keep going, one day the bottom just falls out.
Yeah.
And we've seen that happen over and over. So if I think I know what's going to happen, my experience is I don't know how I said, no, I'm not going to drink.
You have to build, in my experience, I had to build a good toolbox to keep me sober.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was important to me was being really open and honest.
Yeah.
Truly open and honest about myself. And so finding a meeting where I felt that I could do that comfortably and not feel any judgment. And then people that I surround myself that have similar experiences so I can relate, they can relate to me.
Yeah.
And that's been so important in my sobriety.
Yeah. I'm glad that I've had, all of that experience even before that. And it was, I was just really lucky. And I was thinking about this. I used this, and I was thinking in a meeting last night, I had a brother who played the saxophone, and he would play scales up and down. And it's like, can't you learn a song? And one of the things I thought about is recovery is like that. Going to meetings, talking to people. I always suggest to people, hey, if you're new, make a practice calls. You get a list of phone numbers, make a practice call. You can call someone and say, hey, my name's Steve, and this guy suggested I make some practice calls in a meeting, and that's what I'm doing. And most of the time, that person is going to say, wow, thanks for calling, man. That is awesome.
Yeah.
And that's that playing the scales. And so we still do that now, all these years later, that it's get up and read my daily books and pause and make my bed and put my coin in my pocket and go to a meeting and talk to guys I work with and get together with my sponsor.
It's making your lifestyle around it.
Yeah. And it's easy now.
Yeah, it does get easier over time for sure.
I think that the routine and the structure is something I've needed, the foundation. I always say this, but I didn't trust not one person in this whole entire world until I went to AA.
Yeah.
And it took a minute. Yeah. Peter's story and ours is a little different, but we all have the same purpose, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of commonalities, I think, through everybody. We've
absolutely.
done 52 shows, and each one you can pick something that's a common thing or you can relate to.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing in that way.
Yeah.
It is. It is. We all have one common theme. Amen.
Yeah. So that kind of part of that led me up to, there's more to that, but it's not that really important.
Oh, no, it is.
Because what's important is it led me up to meeting Terri. And she had her path getting here.
You want to tell us about your path, and then we'll
Absolutely.
dig into the couple, the we?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Terri, I'm an alcoholic. And
Welcome, Terri.
thank you. Yeah, like Steve, I had a 20-year career of drinking, starting at probably 12 or 13, like a lot of people.
Yeah.
Just drank through high school, through college. Had lots of fun. Thought I was the fun person, and I was proud of myself because I could outdrink the guys. And right. But then I got married, my first husband, for Steve, and we had a couple kids. My drinking was getting really bad. The kids were 2 and 4 when I got sober, and what I think led me to get into treatment was I knew my husband was upset with our marriage. There was a lot more to it. And I just was getting really scared that I was going to lose the kids. I didn't think drinking was a problem, but I thought I might lose my kids because he was unhappy. The cool thing is we went to a marriage counselor or a couples counselor, and I thank this guy to this day. He said, I really can't see you guys until, Terri, you go get an assessment for your drinking. And at the time, I thought, okay. So I went and got 3 assessments. I wanted to make sure that I really
had a problem.
I really had. And then they all kept saying the same thing. Yeah, you need treatment. Yeah, you need treatment. So anyway, so I went to an outpatient program, which was absolutely incredible. And I haven't had to drink since even before I went to treatment. And so I've been sober 34 years. Yeah, wow. 34. Last November, I've been one of those really fortunate people who I haven't had to drink and use again. I have done some crazy behaviors, but I haven't had to drink and use. So after I got sober, I got divorced from that person. We did pretty well raising our kids together. And so I was a single mom for quite a while. Had a few crazy relationships after my divorce and learned some things that I didn't want in a relationship. And then I was single for a while and I was quite happy. I was doing well. I'd gone back to school, gotten a job in the field of addictions, and I was doing really well by myself. I owned my house. My kids were doing okay.
I love that.
Yeah. And then we can get to the point where I went to the North Coast Roundup in 1998.
That's where we launched our podcast.
That's
not that year, but
we did last year. That was our official. We had some episodes, but that's where we officially launched it. How crazy. We were at the same place as you at Saturday night.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Yeah, we were there last year. So anyway, 1998 at the Saturday night dance at the North Coast Roundup was when I met Steve.
Yeah, you didn't want to go that night.
I did not want to go to that dance that night. I was with my girlfriend.
So I didn't go.
She
wasn't going.
Oh, yeah. She wanted to go meet a guy at the dance. And I was like, no, I really just want to stay in my little hotel room and read my book. And yeah.
I got one with a sunken bathtub. I stayed in the tub for I couldn't stay in anymore.
Yeah. So anyway, I went to the dance anyway. My friend talked me into it. And we went and walked into the dance, and Steve walked up to us and said, would you ladies like some chairs? Okay. So he put a couple chairs and we all sat down, and we started talking. He opened up his wallet, showed me his 4 children.
From 3 different moms.
Yeah, a picture of his 4 children by 3 different, basically 4 different moms.
4 different moms, because one was adopted.
Yeah. And
that didn't scare you?
I'm here today. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right there, I would have been out the back door, okay? No, just say it.
Trust me, I tried not to like him.
Okay.
I tried
She tried really hard.
I tried really hard not to like him.
He's got a little pooch.
Yeah. That was one of my excuses.
Yeah.
He's got a little belly.
For our listeners, we're 32nd in Australia because we have a guy that goes to our AA meeting from Australia. The North Coast Roundup is basically an AA convention, and it's at Seaside Beach in the convention center. And they've had it every year. Obviously, if you met way back then, how long have they had it?
This will be the 39th year or something like that.
That's really cool.
Yeah, we talked and danced a few dances, and if I recall, it wasn't until the next morning I said, I'll meet you here and breakfast. And I don't think I'd gotten your phone number yet. And you showed up at the last minute.
Because
you should see her eyes.
Yeah. My friend was having a crisis because she didn't meet the guy the night before. And so we sat in the hotel room and talked. And I'm like, I'm supposed to show up and meet this guy that I met last night. And so, last minute, I think it was as everybody's clearing out of the breakfast, we looked across the room and there he was. So
they had breakfast?
No, they do
at
have
the North Coast Sunday morning breakfast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a breakfast in the morning. But anyway, so we exchanged phone numbers that morning and just took it really slow. And
ironic, your friend was looking for a man and you weren't.
And I found him.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious, just to backtrack a little bit. So when the years that you were sober prior to this, did you go, you said you worked in the addiction field. Did you also, you were attending meetings? Did you have a home group? And so you were really embedded in the program and in sobriety.
Thank you for, yes, I missed that part. But yes, during those 9 years before I met Steve, I had I'd stayed in treatment for a year and a half, basically in an outpatient program. Went back to school. I was going to meetings all the time. I had a sponsor. All my friends were basically AA women.
That's how it is.
I was really involved, and even working in the field, I still do and always go to meetings. That's my recovery. My work is not my recovery. It's both. It mixes in together.
It just becomes a part of life. Yeah.
Meetings.
So yes, I had
brain.
a very strong program going. I had lots of friends and
Steve, you as well. It sounds like
gone to tons of meetings. I go to a lot of meetings, and some people go more. But the other thing that I really like that's always been a part of my recovery from 89 on was retreats. I think men's retreats are really a valuable part of what I've done. And I've really had some great experiences and long friendship. My sponsor of 32 years just passed away last fall. And he and I went up to a summer, just this real small Manuka retreat for, 18 years in a row together. And
right up over I looked it up.
By Corbett.
Beautiful place.
It was great. Wally and I were he and I were really close, and he's just gone through everything with me, and he was a great example of service. He a lot of times he'd work with folks that other people didn't want to work with. He was just a great, simple guy who loved the program, who loved Alcoholics Anonymous, and he just had a way. And
it's a long relationship.
Yeah.
First sponsor passed as well. I had him and I cried for 3 months. Yeah. I bugged the living shit out of him the first 6 months. You say call other people. I called one. Yeah. And luckily he was retired, but I think I wore that man out the first 6 months for real.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that I got from, because I have kids with exes, and one of the messages that I got during my recovery, and this was before Terri and I met, and it was a real struggle with all these different kids around town. And the message that I got, which I think is really important, is pick up the kids on time, bring the kids home on time, pay your child support on time, and don't ask what the money's for.
Oh, very smart.
And I really tried to do that. And I will say my exes were not in recovery, but Terri knew them. And in fact, my first wife, we had a great relationship with.
Cindy was great.
Yeah. And she was in the Army. She didn't drink. And I put her through hell with my drinking.
Right.
And this was in the early 80s. And in fact, a year ago, it's been 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
2 years ago now, she had been real sick, and it ended up our daughter and I were with her when she passed away. And part of being in a relationship is what's really something I think that we're grateful for, and that we've said many times, is that we were put in each other's lives for some reason, because Terri really cared about Cindy and she was really supportive. And just even Terri said she really believes Cindy waited to pass because our daughter was up there by herself, and until I got there into the room, and it was just a few minutes later that she passed away. And we've gone through lots of things in our recovery with kids and our marriage, and that thank God for the program, thank God for the tools, thank God we could pause, thank we could sit. There's been nights we were up worrying about kids, and we took custody of one of our grandkids and for a while, and there was been some tough times, a lot of substance use with the kids, and we can't do this on our own. We don't go to Al-Anon all the time, but we've certainly been there, and we certainly look at it and understand that and talk to other people. And
I understand. For me as well, and Peter as well, I think that life is going to happen regardless, right? Yeah. I'm personally part of the No Matter What Club. I think it's just easier to stay than to go out, but life has been quadruple times 100 more difficult for me in recovery than it was when I was using. There was some pretty ugly times during that time. Yeah. And I've had a lot of losses as well.
Yeah.
I understand.
That's life, isn't it?
It is. And I'm going to tell you, each loss, I double up on meetings. I go more. You
learn how to cope without having to reach for that substance or whatever that escape may be.
Yeah,
for
my
you.
sponsee, when my sponsor died, we were taking a meeting to his house every Saturday. It was Izzy. And I really relied on him a lot. And he was like, I'm not being your sponsor. You're my sponsor. And he was like, you need to go to a meeting tomorrow. And I went. And then he gave me until my AA birthday to get a new sponsor. He was like, I'm not it. Yeah. So it's amazing how the people that stand up for you too during those tough times.
Yeah.
In AA, I find them to be quite solid.
Yeah.
And the rest of the
Steve,
world.
did you also work in the addiction field during that time?
I didn't, but I eventually did, and I do now. And I was a counselor for a while, and now I work in the community doing different things. And that's how we met. In fact,
your card says Serenity Lane on it.
I was at work. I was working. And, and like Terri said, there's a difference between because I work in recovery or we do, because that's not our recovery, right?
No, I hear you.
Yeah, I have a job to do and that kind of thing. And I'm grateful that I get to do what I do because all day long I get to help people. But honestly, it's a little bit of different verbiage sometimes for me and what I do. And if I'm speaking in public or doing something like that, there's traditions and I look at that and I don't blend that. And one of the things that I've been able to do that I really enjoy that is a little bit of recovery related at work, I do a talk called 12 Steps to Spirituality. And it's really not designed for someone with 10 years of recovery, but it's really designed for someone who's afraid. And what I've been really grateful is when I'd hear a group counselor maybe later come back to me the next day and said, you know what, I got a message that so-and-so opened up the book. They went home and they looked in the book.
Oh, that's awesome.
What else could we ask for? It's like, everyone needs to find their own path, and there's paths. And I'm a big believer in the 12 steps. And I don't know what it is, but at least if we'll open up and just be willing. Yeah. There's that willing word. If I'm just willing to look at this, I just might find these people are me. These people that I think are them are just like I am.
And I'm so glad it says we came to believe, not that we had to believe. That it was like yes or no, because it took me a hot second. I'm a slow learner in the program. When I was on parole, it was just to get off parole. And then I decided to stay. Then it was the group. And then it became a higher power. So thank God it came to believing you don't have to believe right now.
Yeah. I've got a friend who always introduces himself as I'm a slowly recovering alcoholic. And I think he just had 37 or 8 years. I can't remember, like something like that. But I love that because it's really true. Isn't that part of when I finally slowed down drinking pop or water so quick, right? It took me a while to drink at maybe a normal pace because I was so used to dumping them down. Life becomes that way and it's okay. I can learn to live at a comfortable pace in recovery.
Love that.
I'm just curious, how do you separate your work from your non-work? Because it seems like there might be crossovers or it might get overwhelming because, like I know with the podcast, I record it, I edit it. So I'm in it multiple times. And then I review it at the end and I'm in it again. And sometimes it's, wow, this, and some of the stories we hear can be quite intense, if you will. How do you keep yourself, grounded, I guess, for lack of a better word?
There's a couple of things that I do is I always carry a coin with me. And one of the things is that if I'm having a tough time with the day, I can put my hand in the pocket and rub that coin and nobody will know it. And I can say, take a breath, guide me. It's okay. Right. And so I use, and I think Terri does too. I think as we've talked about this, we use these recovery principles all the time. The difference is that is not what feeds my recovery, going to a meeting, working the steps, talking to other people, and so on, right? So my sponsor passed away. I've got a new sponsor. And I said, hey, I want to work the steps, and we're working the steps together. And I'm at 29 years and he's at 38, I think. And so we're digging in, and we're really trying to dig in and say, how can we help each other with this?
I love that. I have a new sponsor as well. It'll be 5 years this year.
Yeah.
And he's the dad I never had. It's a different relationship, but he doesn't have any children. He's a gay man, 46 years of sobriety, and he's a hoot. But yeah, it's crazy. And I think in AA, being an only child, gaining that family of choice has been everything. Peter, I always wanted a brother that played sports, but I got Peter, who is different, but you never know when you're going to get that. I feel like my nighttime meeting is called extended family. And I really feel that's what they are. Terri, you look so familiar to me, like I've seen you somewhere.
I know. I'm looking at you.
It's killing me.
We probably...
Yeah, we have, for sure. I don't know where. I don't know when, but I'm positive of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I keep looking at you too, thinking.
Yeah, I don't know where or when. I don't know if I was in trouble or was I in treatment or what, or because I don't go to a lot of women's meeting. I go to a gay men's meeting, which is why I always have a guy sponsor, because they don't want to sleep with me. So it works out perfectly. But yeah, you look really familiar to me. It's crazy. Yeah. I worked for Sprint for a long time, 19 years. So I don't know. Crazy. I've been to a few treatment centers too. I'm lucky. The last one, the lady said to me, Julie, I believe you want to be sober. I actually really believe you. I think you're the one that's going to make it. But you need to find a meeting that you like and stay there for the rest of your life. Yeah, I can only get you clean. I can't keep you clean.
That's a good point.
Yeah, she was right. Absolutely.
Now, I know Steve, I first met you at the Walk for Recovery, and your booth was next to ours, and you work for Serenity Lane. You still work for them. And do you work for the same?
No, I work for Hazelton.
For Hazelton.
Betty Ford.
And so how's your days now? You've gotten together, you're going down these paths, and how do you guys, what's your relationship like, and what's your day-to-day like?
You want me to take that one? Yeah. To back up a little bit, when Steve was talking about, we've had a complicated situation. He's got the 4 kids. I've got 2. Most of them have struggled. All of them have struggled with either addiction or mental health. And I just want to say it again, that I really think we were put in each other's lives to help us through all of the things that we've gone through with our kids. That's awesome. And with our exes and a whole bunch. I think that it was no mistake.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a reason not to like him. But
she tried.
I tried. But yeah, I've worked in the field since 1992. Yeah, I think and so what happens in my recovery and my work is that it does mush together sometimes. I really cannot go to a meeting almost anywhere, except for when we were in Europe, that I don't see someone I know. And I'm thinking I was at a women's meeting last night, and I'm sitting there, and there's the lady who was speaking, talked about going through the program. And I don't know if she remembered me. It doesn't really matter. But I look around and I see all these people that I've watched their journeys and watched them get sober. And I got to make a little teeny bit of difference in people's lives. And it's pretty amazing. It just means a lot to me that I've gotten to help women in recovery. And so you were asking about our day-to-day life now. So yeah, we both work full time. I work a lot. I'm not going to fool you.
She does.
I manage the women's unit out at Hazelton. And so I still get to do a lot of patient contact. I get to be with the women a lot, which is great. And my job's really big and busy, and there's a lot, and I take work home. And
any position in management, you already know.
And I love it. I absolutely love the career path that I decided on when I got sober.
Is that where you went?
No, I went to St. Vincent's. It was an outpatient program.
I went to St. Vincent's too.
Did you? What year?
In Cedar Hills?
Oh, no, mine was across from the hospital in 1990.
That's Cedar Hills area.
Oh, maybe, 1990 was
St.
when
Vincent's.
I was there.
I used to work at St. Vincent's in the OR, but not related to recovery.
Not related, yeah, I was in 1990. I was in.
I have my coin with St. Vincent's.
So do I.
On it. Yeah,
that's funny.
It is. That actually was the last one I went to, where the lady, her name was Tanis.
Oh, Tanis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Blonde lady.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That was her. That's the one who told me, Julie, you need to find a meeting. And
that's funny. Phyllis was my counselor there, but Tanis was a family counselor, and she was probably my favorite person there.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the first radio things I did years ago was with Tanis. We did a radio show, and we talked about family stuff. But anyway, that's funny. I loved her. Was Corky there too at the time?
I don't know. I just remember her.
Tanis.
And it's a crazy story how I got there. I had relapsed, but I ran to the parole officer and I told her that I had used, and I told her to put me in jail, that I didn't want to be high. And I had 18 months, 12 months, drug-free baby. And then I got in trouble, which was, it's in itself. But she said, Jill, I'm not going to put you in jail. You're one of my most successful clients. And she said, I'm going to give you 2 weeks at the restitution center, and I'm going to put you back through treatment. And I went there, and I lived in Cedar Hills. I went to Sunset. So did my daughter.
Oh, okay.
And she said, I can tell you really want to be sober. I see it. And I think I just needed that push and that faith. And then when she told me to find a meeting, it was just finding that meeting that you fit into can be everything. And for me, it was a gay men's meeting. And she really influenced me a lot. I tell this story a lot, how she said that. And she said, I can only help you get clean. I can't keep you clean. And when she said that, I never relapsed either since I went in. But yeah, she was, I would say, a deciding factor.
She was a real influence in my recovery too.
And my group had some fuck-offs in it, for real. You could tell some of them were just there. And she told me, Julie, don't hang out with these people. A lot of them aren't going to make it.
Yep. What's also really interesting is I was there in 1990, and there are 3 men in the program. One of them's a pretty good friend of Steve's now, are still sober. And I still see him at meetings.
I love that.
Some of those.
I go with him to a meeting every Saturday morning.
Yeah, with one of them. And so those people are,
That's
that
crazy.
bond you make in treatment is amazing.
That you will remember for the rest of your life. Like that lady. Yeah, she was, and I still have, I think, my first step book I did there.
I have mine too.
Yeah. And speaking of Hazelton, the first 2 people I asked to sponsor me said no. One had too many sponsors, and the other one said she'd help me. And she did, but she said she didn't sponsor. So Hazelton, the guides, I just kept going and getting them at the AA unit group. doing the steps by myself because I didn't have a sponsor. I'm dead serious. I did the whole first 12 steps except for the 5th step and the first step on my own. I didn't get a sponsor almost till a year, and not from lack of effort. But then when I got the right one.
I went to outpatient at Hazelden in Chicago. That's where I first started my recovery journey.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So I'm familiar with the organization as well. And they did help. They got me started anyway. I had a lot of learning to do and
research, Peter.
Research as well before I finally.
It's just like I don't like character defects. I like opportunities. Still have some opportunities because I don't want to be a defect.
Life is an opportunity. No matter what it is. Right. Every struggle. But what I'm thinking as we're talking is how much I appreciated it in my outpatient program that they required that we went to meetings. I was a rule follower at that time, and they said go to 3 meetings a week. I did. And I think that's how I really got into the program, is because we'd go in every week and we'd have to mark that we did these certain things. And one of them was going to meetings. And that helped me get connected with.
Help building that structure.
Yeah.
I know we talk about this in other shows or have talked about it throughout other shows where there's a couple of things that you're sparking in my mind. The peer mentorship, so lived experience. So having you both in the recovery field and having had the experience of going through recovery. And I think that's super important. And I find that's said over and over. And then the other thing is to have a path. Not recovery isn't just I go into outpatient or inpatient or a treatment and then I'm done. And in that, I think in the beginning, that was, at least for me, that's why I get that magic pill and I'm all cured. You have to have a path forward. And a lot of I think the successful institutions out there are providing that. They provide that path forward. You get the treatment, then you have the meeting structure, you have employment opportunities, housing opportunities. It's like a whole package. And I think that really helps the success rate of people. At least I've seen that throughout the people we've talked to. I think that's what it has to
be, because I think you have to make it a lifestyle. It just can't be just treatment.
That's what Steve and I have today is a lifestyle of recovery.
Right.
For the last 3 years, we've had a Christmas party at our house, like an open house. And we have a beautiful neighborhood that has really cool lights. And we invite a bunch of people over. And each year we've had 60 to 100 people over, and most of them are in recovery.
Yeah.
There's a few work people, but most of those people that show up at our door are in recovery.
That is really cool.
It is just so amazing to look around and go, wow, these are the beautiful people we've met because we're sober, because we both work a program, we both take this really seriously, and it's our lifestyle. It isn't recovery's over here at meetings, and we just live it.
Yeah, that's what I found too. In the beginning, it was very separate. And I had my normie life, if you will, and my recovery life. And that kept me from staying in recovery. And now that I have it pretty much my whole life, it's really helped me keep on that journey, I think.
Early on, I was in a meeting. It was an out-of-town meeting. And I still remember this basically sentence. And we were talking about practicing these principles in all of our affairs. And what I remember is this guy was a judge who was talking, and he was sober and in a meeting, and everyone knew that he was a judge. But he was talking about, he said, I got a friend who owns a business up in the next city. And he says, well, yeah, I want to practice this in all my affairs, but not at work. Right? Because that's my job. That's my company up there. And in this meeting, he was saying, I have to practice these principles in all my affairs. And it's a lifestyle, right? We don't separate where we do this.
Yeah, exactly. Also, in my history, I wore a mask a lot of my life. I was a gay man in a household in a community that wasn't open or accepting to it. I wore a mask. I'm very shy, and I'm a technically geek kind of guy, but at work, I'd wear the mask to fit into all the. I worked at Fred Meyer for a period. I worked in a conference center where we had the food group, we had the apparel, all these different groups, and they're all different. I managed to. I was a very good actor. I could blend right in and fit right into any group. But I found that as I got older and more mature, and as I then began in the recovery, I didn't want to wear those masks. I couldn't wear those masks. I had to be me. I had to be 100% and 100% open and honest. And talk about with the podcast, we told our stories to everybody.
I felt like I was naked on a stripper pole.
And so there's no turning back. I'm out there. This is who I am. This is what I've done. This is the journey I've taken. Here I am. Take me for what I am. But I found it's been a blessing to be so open and comfortable with it. And those that, maybe fell off the way, they weren't that important anyways, or weren't needed to be a part of my life. So it's worked out really. Serenity Lane, can you tell me a little bit about what that is? And for our listeners, explain a little bit about.
Sure. Serenity Lane was started in 73 down in Eugene. It's a nonprofit. What's really interesting is the co-founder's son is now the CEO 50 years later.
That's cool.
And so there's a detox and residential, and then there's outpatients around the state. And it has a long history. It's helped 70,000 plus folks. And Hazleton has just a little bit longer history of existence. These are a couple of pretty established places. And I'm just really grateful. One of the things is I help out at the Hazleton retreats. The alumni retreats. We've spoken there. We show up and we just volunteer and help. It's not work. But
recovery has its own community, which is an amazing community.
Yeah.
Unlike the drinking community, it's so different.
It's a lot more reliable than the drinking community.
And I like what you said about practice this in all our principles. My first job when I got sober, or second, everyone knew I was in recovery. It wasn't a secret. Friday, I'm going to pick up my sponsor. I'm going to the meeting. It was very open. And when that job ended because of the T-Mobile merger, the next company I went to, I didn't feel comfortable. There was nobody in recovery. And it really hurt my brain. It really hurt my brain. And I found myself going to IOP 25 years sober. But it was a very uncomfortable situation. Peter and I both have experienced that at a job. But I agree with you. When you can just be open, it's just so much easier.
recovery it's a constant growing. You asked what we're doing in our lives. Terri's in a woman's group, separate for kind of their own meeting, and they're going through the big book. And I have guys that I meet with and doing different things. So we're not enmeshed in each other's lives in recovery, honestly.
His, hers, and ours.
We really do.
Yeah.
And there was growing pains. There was all of those things that we both bring in and that we had to learn and we had to practice, and we made a lot of mistakes.
Hey, speak for yourself.
I made a lot of mistakes. Terri doesn't make mistakes. And we've grown, and it's pretty easy right now in a lot of ways, you know.
Do you think, I think, but I just want to know your thoughts, and especially because you're both involved in centers. I believe there's sobriety, and then I believe there's recovery. And I think they're two completely different things. I've seen people be sober and not have recovery. I've seen it in me. There's times when times when I was just sober. And I will tell you, in the beginning, it was enough just to be sober. Even though I was working the steps, I don't necessarily know that I was in recovery. Now I know that I'm in recovery all the time, but I do believe there's a difference.
Oh,
And I'm still a human. Between the two of us, I'm the one that gets more frustrated or even angry sometimes. And we're human, right?
Amen.
And I'm always trying to find, okay, what do I need? What can I be working on? I read my daily books in the morning, and I try to look for those words that pop out. I like to say I read those so I can get a different thought in my head besides my own thinking. right?
Mm-hmm.
And I never know. And often there's this word or something. Sometimes I even have to get on my phone and look it up. What is that word? And maybe I've read that book 10 times that date. And it's, what's that word? We saw a word in, as Bill sees it,
That's my favorite book, as Bill
the
sees
word
it.
Pacific. And I can't remember what it means, but we were like, Pacific? Is that a typo? We got out our phone in the meeting and looked it up. I can't remember. I got to look that up again, but I think it had something to do with tolerance or something.
So on that, as Bill sees it, I will take the word, let's say frustration or acceptance, and I'll go to the front and I'll get each page that subject's on. And not all of them relate to what I'm feeling for that moment, right? But I go through it until I find one that does. And usually by the time I go through each page under that word, right, I'll find the one I'm looking for, and then it will help me.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's a game I play often, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just recently, resentments. I've really become acceptant that what's uncomfortable in me. And that's uncomfortable. Just figuring out what's wrong with you and why you're in the resentment. Yeah. It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
By the way, be specific. I just looked this up. Tending to lessen or avoid fights or disagreements.
To avoid them.
To avoid them.
Oh.
And
That's Peter.
And there really is something when I see these words in recovery to stop. And somebody had to show me this. And when we got sober, you couldn't just grab it right out of here.
Yeah.
But now you can.
Yeah.
And it's such a great tool.
Yeah.
And I like to read a book because I have 3 daily books and I put a paper bookmark in it because if I open it up and it says February 19th, what it tells me is, and today's the 25th, is that I haven't been reading my books. And what it does is it forces me to be honest with me about what I'm doing in my recovery. And it's something different than picking up my phone, which I do 100 times a day. It's my business, it's my work.
Yeah.
So I really need to see something and pick it up and make it on purpose act for my recovery.
I do that, and then a gratitude list.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes I don't want to do it. And then I think of Jonah a lot, a guy we did the podcast on. And he was so happy to be able to do laundry and have clothing because he was homeless.
Yeah.
And so then I can always start with sobriety and that I have a place to live and I get to do laundry, not I have to do laundry. And sometimes I just have to keep it that simple and not make it elaborate. So
what else has been great about doing these shows is that you pick up little bits, like just what you said, having intention and reading. Recovery is what we've learned is so different for everybody. It doesn't have to be not one size shoe fits all. Yeah. But there's little bits you can learn. And I love that. I love to hear these. What works for you? What works for you? Because I may not think it can work for me or it may not integrate with me, but there may be something that does. And, and always growing, you know.
The bookmark thing, I do the same thing. And except for mine isn't a bookmark, I have a strip of my daughter and her father, and he died of an overdose. So every time I read, I'm like, I get to be here.
Yeah.
You know, but I do the same thing. If I've missed a couple days, I'm like, damn. And then I try to go back and make up for it. And then I'll be like, oh, this one wasn't that good anyway, just to justify that I didn't read it that day.
I drank and used and lied and cheated and everything else with dedication.
Man.
And
every day.
All the time. It was always something that I was willing to do or shortcut or lie or cover up or fool myself or fool someone else. Right.
Amen.
And if I do that today, I still have my stuff for sure. Right. I can't kid myself about that.
Right.
And I think what the recovery asks us for is, we talked about it early, just be willing to go just a little bit further in what I'm doing.
Terry, what were you going to say?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
it's okay. Steve talks. I was going to say that we spend a lot of time with our grandkids. We have lots of grandkids, but the two that live really close to us, my daughter is a single mom and has two kids. They're now 10 and 15, but ever since they're little, we travel a lot with them, and we take them a lot of places. But I have this book, we call it our gratitude book, and every time we go any place, on a vacation, a car trip, wherever we go, I start out as on the way, and I look at the kids and I say, "What are you grateful for?" And so over the years, I've written down everything that that we all say about being grateful for. And it might be, I'm grateful for Mickey Mouse, or I'm grateful for Tyler, the Creator, which is my granddaughter's favorite.
That's where she's at tonight.
That's where she's at tonight, is at Tyler, the Creator. But anyway, so over the years I have this book that the kids have drawn little pictures, but we have the gratitudes of where we just whatever it is at the moment. And it's really fun. J-Lo, my granddaughter, was reading through the book the last road trip we took, and it was really fun to hear her say, "Oh, yeah, we went on this trip, and this is what I said I was grateful for." And I think it's just been a lovely way to help the kids learn a skill. Like you were saying, you make your gratitude list, and I taught them to stop for a second and be grateful for whatever.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And what a cool thing to be able to go back through.
That book is priceless. Yeah.
It really is. It's just great.
Yeah. And I get it out now, and I go, "Guess what?" And they go, "Oh, it's time for gratitude."
But you know what? When they're older, they're going to be fighting over that book.
Yeah.
You both mentioned that if I understood correctly, you both have children that have been in addiction.
Yes.
How was that as a parent? Working through that?
Yeah.
Just and maybe for listeners who are in the same situation.
Yeah. As a person in recovery, a person that works in the field, that a lot of knowledge about addiction. And I knew my kids could have addiction problems, and both of them have. A couple of Steves have too, and it's so hard. As much as I know, as much as I could tell another person, suggest what they do, it's really different when it's my child.
You can't do it for them.
Oh,
my daughter graduated from Another Chance. Matter of fact, she has 9 months sober today.
Nice.
Beautiful.
I pulled over on the road on the way here to send the text because I just saw her and I forgot. But I hadn't forgot. Yeah. And I'm so lucky she grew up in AA. Because when I suggested to her, I was like, "You have 2 addictive parents. I think your drinking is a little much." And I said, "Maybe you need to go to treatment." And she went. And I think because she's been around it since she was 4, it wasn't easier for her to go because she seemed to catch on pretty quick. And we go to the Tuesday night meeting at Another Chance together. And if you had to ask me, other than sobriety, my biggest blessing, my kid actually wants to go to a fucking meeting with me. I wouldn't have gone to a meeting with my mom. I'm just saying. I definitely wouldn't have chaired a meeting and said my shit in front of my mother. And when she did, I was just like, I made sure I didn't say nothing back, didn't comment, just was like, "You did a great job." But you can't fix things for them. You can help them, but you can't enable them, else they won't get it.
We've been to lots of treatment centers. I've been to probably more family programs than I can count because of all the treatment centers my kids have been to. I think there's a couple things I think that I learned that were so helpful for me, and I could tell anybody else this, but when I finally got it myself, is that when my daughter was in her addiction, it was like, "I'll do whatever to support if you want to be toward recovery. I cannot support anything that goes toward your addiction." And it seems so simple, but it helped me clarify that I can't keep.
You're right.
I love you, and I can't do anything that's going to support you out there using. If you come to me and want help, that's where I'll help. And the other thing is just realizing that my kids, Steve's kids, have struggled with addiction and mental health too. And they have their own higher powers. I am not it.
I tried to be.
I tried
for
to
a
be
minute.
too.
Yeah.
I tried to, but that's just something that I am able to help other women with. That is, you're not. Your woman the other day was talking about her son and his depression and all this, and just reminded her that your son has his own higher power and you aren't it. I said it in a nicer way than that, probably. But
no, but that's beautiful.
It's just such a reminder for me that as much as I want to take care and put my kid in bubble wrap, and I had to let him live. I had to. I still have to let them live their lives. And
my mom had a favorite quote, and she said, "You got yourself into this mess. You can get yourself out."
well,
Seriously, she didn't go to court with me.
mm-hmm.
The lawyer wanted her to go for like sympathy and bring my child, and she was like, "No." And I went all by myself, and it was probably a good lesson in the long run.
Yeah, it's been, I think we've said it earlier a couple times, but we have helped, Steve has helped me through all my stuff with my kids. And
what a great support system.
And we now have grandkids together, and we have 6 of them now. It's amazing.
Yeah.
How'd we get 6 grandkids?
6 kids and 6 grandkids.
Yeah.
Wow.
And none of them we had together.
No, none of them are ours.
They're all
No.
this
Crazy is
season.
that?
Yeah, this is like, talk
but
about
they've
the
all
Brady
become
Bunch.
our kids, and we get to help all of them. So
How good for them, though, to have you and have that stability in their lives from what it was before and what it is now. Like, that is amazing.
yeah,
Kudos.
And our kids really never saw me drink.
Mine didn't either.
And yours did a little bit,
well,
but they were pretty
2
young.
and 4. Jessica remembers stuff.
Yeah.
She was 4. She remembers.
My daughter doesn't remember anything.
There's a lot of people in recovery that have kids. So if you're listening to this, you're not alone, that have problems with addictions.
Well, I don't think people realize just how addictive and hereditary alcoholism is. Yeah. Just understanding that, I had a lot of forgiveness for my mother. Understanding how it goes down, her being the oldest of 7 and whatnot. And I think that has given me a lot of forgiveness that I didn't have for a long time.
Yeah.
But then realizing that she did the best she could.
We've had guests on that have children that have been in active addiction.
Yeah.
And for some, and I know they listen, and others probably listen who have family members in the same situation. Steve, we heard from Terri, but how about you? How do you approach it with your children, and what might you show others listening? Give advice, I guess, for lack of.
I guess one of the things that we really do have an advantage is that we understand addiction. We've done a lot of family work. And one of the things that I have said to my kids, and some of them, they really haven't fallen into recovery like I would think, right? And I just say, look, I can point you in the direction, but I can't do it for you.
Amen.
And so one of the things where you were talking about work, where this comes in, because I'll talk to a lot of families. I get phone calls. I work with interventionists. I do all kinds of things like that. And I get calls all the time. Can't you make them go to treatment? Can't you make them get sober? And I have to, as professionally, everything is just be there for them and listen. But we can't do that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that a lot of times people will say they have to want to. And one of the things that I think is, no, I don't know if they do have to want to. Because a lot of times when people want to is 60 days later, 90 days later, 6 months later, and they go, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought. In fact, this is pretty great. Right? My life is getting better. And then we start wanting to, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone walks in here, yeah, I'm going to AA.
No. Yeah.
I'm going to treatment.
I was just going to get off parole.
Yeah.
Mine was to retain a job. That was my whole goal for going through treatment.
Yeah.
I was going to save my marriage, but
See?
that didn't work for me.
Yeah, right.
And thank goodness, because it led me to bigger and better and led me to Steve. So.
Yeah.
As difficult as some of us had been, I think there's times where we've bitten our lips and times we haven't and said, we're going to be here for each other no matter what. We're not going to drink and we're going to be here, as tough as it is.
It's my favorite words, no matter what.
Yeah.
Because some of the biggest disagreements or conflicts we've had have been over the kids and how each of us deals with things. And we had my daughter and my grandkids living with us for 7 years after she got sober. And
I wish you could see my face.
Yeah.
For those listening.
Yes. That was hard. That was really hard. As much as I love my daughter and my grandkids, it was really hard. And thank goodness that after 7 years of recovery, she was able to buy her own place. And they live 2 blocks away now, but it's better. But
And we're glad they're so close.
yeah, I'm so glad they're close.
My in-laws, when we came back from Chicago, was the low point, and I was really into my addiction at that point. And we lived in their basement for several years before we were able to get back on our feet. And it was, I'm surprised we didn't come to blows. Let's just say it was very close calls a few times.
We made it sober and stayed together. So
that's. Well, I think that's a testament to the power of recovery.
It absolutely is.
My daughter lives in the same condos. That's funny. 6 doors down. And there's been 6 months I ignored her. Seriously. We're close. And we've always been extremely close. But when I was trying to tell you what to do, and then I had to let you do it, when I finally backed off, I think that's when it went the best.
Yeah, I agree.
That was because of my sponsor. I will give him full credit. You need to leave her alone. And I was like, okay.
We're really loving recovery now. You can't see this, but we're not kids anymore. And there's a lot.
You still have good hair, Steve?
It's taken a long time. I always, like with addiction, I want that result now.
Yeah.
And this has taken a long time, long working career, long marriage, long recovery, all of these things. And one of the things that we're doing for us today is we're saying, okay, we can maybe travel. A great gift we've never done is we're going to go to the international in Vancouver.
Canada.
Okay.
And in June, it'll be our 25th wedding anniversary. Then a few weeks later, we're going up to the AA International up there. And then we're getting on a cruise through Sober Cruise. And a good friend of ours in recovery and all these people. And we're going to go on this cruise. Who would have thunk?
Yeah.
Right?
You deserve it.
You know, I mean, how we look. One of the guys that's going, he and his wife are going. The other night, he was complaining about he had to replace the sidewalk in front of his house, the roots and all that.
Yeah.
And he's really been having a hard time because it hasn't been cheap. But he said the other night, we were at a meeting, and he said, you know what? I have a sidewalk.
Exactly.
And I loved it. It was like,
It's just like Julie said, I get to do laundry. You know? And it does put you in a different perspective when you think of things that way. And you said patience has been my downfall. And so I've really had to work on patience and being patient through all kinds of things, all aspects of my life. I wanted this podcast to be #1 out the door and thousands of people listening and profitable. No, it's going to take some time.
The setup crew, the equipment guy. I help pull the wagon.
The truck backing up.
Yeah,
exactly.
He does.
No, that's okay. I'm enjoying the journey, right?
I do. There's something I want to mention because I've been very lucky in my life. I've been very fortunate. And I know this guy named Gary who came in to AA and he'd never had a key to anything. Never. He grew up his whole life living out of dumpsters. And he came in and went to the Alano Club. He met my sponsor, Wally, and a few other folks, and he got sober. And today, this guy is 22 years sober. He's got a car. He's got an apartment. And this guy's my hero, right? Because I always had a key.
Yeah.
I never missed a meal, right? And here this guy is sober today. And I think that for me, I have to remember, one, how grateful I am and how fortunate, but also people can get sober here. You don't have to come from anything. And we get sober. We don't do it alone, right? My first sponsor that I had, I called him one night after a meeting. He came walking in and his roommates handed him the phone. It was me. And as he said, my ass was falling off. And he has shared, he's got over 40 years now. And he said, I would have drank that night probably if you hadn't called, right? So it's so important for us to call and realize no matter where we are, it's like those practice calls. And so when I'm so fortunate, but I think Gary he's my number one hero out there.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky.
You're my heroes. I've been trying to switch careers and I haven't been successful yet. I've always not worked in the recovery field and I wanted to merge that because and it hasn't been as easy. I got my CRM and then my CADCR, need the practice units. And I keep telling myself it's going to happen. Just be patient and whatnot. And yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, we did a podcast in the afternoon and this man is dying. And I was so grateful I didn't have a job yesterday. Or tonight I could have made it if I was working. But yesterday when I went home, I was so grateful. Yeah, that I didn't have a job and we could do the podcast yesterday. Because we had to do this on his terms 100%. He could barely walk in. Yeah. And he has 40-something
I think
years.
there's a lot of, I think I have probably 52 episodes. I have 52 heroes because every single one
oh my God.
is a story of going through who knows what, just the most horrendous situations in some cases. And here they are, they're running nonprofits or they're executive directors for this and that. Just to see these people and see what they, these are people that maybe today you walk down the street and there's someone nodding off and that person could be 10 years later, one of these people.
John from Another Chance. John's my hero. He has more felonies than me and better Nikes. But when he tells the judge told him, I think you deserve another chance. And then to give other people another chance. And the first thing they don't ask is what your insurance is. And I know for a fact, the lady on our board, her insurance didn't go for there. And he sponsored it the whole time. And she stayed longer than anyone because she was scared. And we have 3 or 4. We have a couple from your place too in our group. One recently, our airplane guy graduated from there.
Oh.
So yeah, it's amazing. And I want to be like that. I want to make a difference in that way. I hope the podcast does, because we've had a lot of people say, I couldn't go to a meeting, I listened to the podcast. And we hope that is doing it too.
Yeah,
Well,
if it helps one person, I think that just can make all the difference in the world. Probably going to help more people, but if it helps one.
Yeah, that was
great.
that was all I wanted out of this when we first started. I said, if we just help one person, and it'll be a success. And so I consider us a success.
And it sounds like it's helped the two of you enormously.
Yes. Yeah. In spades. Yeah, definitely. Are you guys going to the next roundup?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
In fact, this time, which is unusual, we rented a house. We're bringing the grandkids and all
nice.
that. And we got an extra day because they don't have school on Monday. So we're going to stay.
I love it.
Yeah.
We just yellow house at Seaside.
Yeah, the little yellow house at Seaside. Yeah. Most people don't make it to any kind of recovery, any kind of sobriety that have an addiction or alcoholism. And
how lucky are we?
Yeah.
We're the lucky ones.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a part of a really special club, and I can't believe that I have to pinch myself. Here I am with these people, and they're my people. It's really cool. It's a great place to be at.
Yeah.
I agree. That's sometimes too, I think, I can't imagine my life without recovery. And it would have been, I guess what it would have been is I probably would have kept drinking and gotten old and grumpy, because that's what my female relatives that continued to drink were, just really unhappy, grumpy women.
Yeah.
And that's what my life, I don't see it as dead. I see it as miserable. So I just feel so lucky to get out of that, and sad that none of my relatives got recovery.
Yeah.
Well,
I have a sibling, and I always ask myself, why do I have to go through this? What's the point of all this back in the day? And I recently got to help him get on his path. And he's still at the beginning, but he's on the path. And if I hadn't gone through all this, I may not have been here to do that for him. So there's a little reward.
Absolutely.
Put there.
So how long has Michael been sober? 35 years? This is my brother. He's 35.
30. I think he's 36.
Maybe 36 years sober.
Yeah, because he's a year and a half more than me. Yeah.
I can't not mention him in this. He would be upset.
Okay, shout out segment.
Yeah.
I love
That's
that.
true. You haven't mentioned your brother yet.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
No.
That's awesome.
And he lives over in Bend, and there's meetings over there that we'll go to together over there when I get over there. And
So did you connect together in the beginning and support each other? Or?
he started getting sober first, and then there's just been relapses. And then I had a little bit more time than him, and now he's got a little bit more than me. But we're really, one of the great joys that we had is our mom got cancer, and this was in the early 90s. And we went to the Alano Club for Thanksgiving, and she came, and she was sick with cancer then. Oh. And when she died, she knew her boys were sober.
That's an awesome way to go.
And there's this picture that I can just instantly see in my mind of my mom knowing, and she was sick, but she was pretty happy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's the last thing my mom said to me was, we did one thing right. and I was like, and she had cancer too. And she said, you've been great with Cassandra. And I had been sober, 10 years at that point in time. And she didn't think I was a fuck up anymore. Yeah. It is. It's nice to go out in a strong way like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really want to thank you for coming here tonight. I haven't thought about tennis, and that's crazy. And I still think I know you from somewhere.
Yeah.
And if not, I do now.
Yep. Maybe we'll figure it out.
Yeah. It's crazy because I really think that. It's somewhere. I just don't know where. But I'll work on it.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out too.
Yeah, we'll have to figure it out at North Coast Roundup and have a conversation or something. When you guys went to the Sunday, you know why I wasn't at the Sunday breakfast? I had to work. Remember, I went back.
Oh, that's right.
I went back to work. Yeah. I went to the conference, and I had to be back to work at Sunday at 5 a.m.
Oh.
So I drove back Saturday. Actually, one of our A members came and got me.
Was that your first North Coast Roundup last year?
So I went to It's a She thing at Seaside before. I actually went during 9/11 when the speakers were canceled.
Oh.
So I'd been to that conference, but that was the first time at North Coast Roundup. And originally, our other board member, she asked me to go, and then I asked Peter if he wanted to go. And then we decided, let's launch the podcast officially on that day. So, and it was a good trip for me. I don't like to share a hotel room. I usually can't sleep if there's somebody else there. And we got a hotel room with a bedroom, a living room, and the sunken bath. And
that's right.
It was nice. It had a door that shut between, and I was able to sleep. A lot of great things happened. I was able to travel with someone that it was good. Because Peter's trailer's small. And
I had a little travel trailer, and we had, at the time, we were part of Thousand Trails, which they have a place very close.
Right.
Yeah, so that's where we stayed. And I'd heard about the North Coast Roundup, where I first got sober at ECAC, East County Alano Club, and a lot of people would go to it. And so I'd hear these stories and stuff. And so for me, that was part of the reason going out there.
Yeah.
So
our friend Colette, the other board member, she spoke at the North Coast Roundup at the smaller meeting upstairs at the LGBTQ meeting. And it was great because there was 5 people from our home group that came down just to hear her speak. And I thought, the guy that drove me home, I was like, wow, he came down just for her to speak and pick me up. And I wouldn't normally count on that, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, the support of your group. Yeah.
Yeah.
The ongoing joke, if you ever need to move, join AA. Thank you guys both. Any parting words for our listeners, words of wisdom? You've said so much already that I think is going to help so many people.
I actually really like this podcast. Sometimes there's a lot of war stories in them, and this one has been so much about recovery. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. If you haven't picked it up already, I love being sober. I love recovery. I get joy every day from watching other people, and particularly I work with women, just watching those light bulbs go off and then seeing people sober years and years later. It has not gotten old. I've been doing the work for 30 years or more. It's probably been more now. I guess that's probably my main thing. It's and that you don't have to do this alone. The people that I have met and that we have met over the years, I was talking about the Christmas party. I look around and go, these are the people I get to hang out with. Yeah. This is cool.
Yeah. I have those same moments.
And I walk into the house tonight, to your house, and you guys have elephants all over the place. How cool. If you come to my house someday, you will see elephants all over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're good luck for us.
POH, Peter's house. Yeah.
The only thing I would say in closing is there's a meeting on Waikiki Beach, and people come from all over the world to this meeting, and it's called the 12 Coconuts. And because there's always visitors, they make a big deal about it, and they say aloha, which means a lot of happy alcoholics.
I love it.
I love that. I've never been to Hawaii, but I want to go to that meeting.
Yeah, that sounds
so
awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks again. This is Peter with the Real Recovery Podcast.
This is Julie with Terry and Steve.
Thanks for listening. That's a wrap on today's episode. Thanks to each and every one of you for lending us your ears and hearts. Your engagement is what fuels our passion and keeps this podcast thriving.
We cherish the moments we share here and hope they resonate with you, whether you're on a daily commute, at the gym, or just taking a moment for yourself.
Make sure to head over to our website at realrecoverypodcast.com. While you're there, subscribe to our newsletter for the latest insights and uplifting stories from our community delivered straight to your inbox.
Click that subscribe button on your favorite podcast player too, so you can keep up with every new episode. It's your support that keeps our conversation alive and meaningful.
And if our stories have touched you, consider using the donate button on our site. Your contributions, no matter the size, are deeply appreciated. They help us continue our mission of sharing hope and healing.
Join us beyond the podcast and follow our journey on social media. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and on X, formerly known as Twitter. All the links are on our site, so you can stay connected and be a part of the Real Recovery community every day.
Your likes, shares, and comments not only spread the message of recovery, but also remind us that we're all in this together.
So, until we meet again, remember that recovery is a journey, not a destination, and we'll be here to accompany you every step of the way to recovery, real recovery.
Thanks for listening.